This is where heavy trucks come to die, or come back to life. No computers, no diagnostics, no fancy equipment, just rust, fire, grease, and mechanics who refuse to let old machines stay dead. Somewhere inside this Mercedes steering gearbox, something had gone badly wrong. The steering was binding deep inside, and nobody knew how much damage was hiding underneath decades of grease and contamination. The moment they turned the shaft, they could feel it. Grinding, resistance, rough movement. A heavy truck steering box should move smoothly. This one felt like it was fighting itself. Modern workshops would use hydraulic pullers. Here, they reached for a hammer and chisel. Because years of corrosion had practically welded the housing shut. Every bolt fought back. Heat, pressure, dirt, old oil. Everything inside this gearbox had seized together over time. One snapped bolt here could turn the rebuild into a nightmare. One layer finally came apart, then another. But the deeper they went, the more resistance they found hiding inside the gearbox. This wasn't a normal teardown anymore.
The housing slowly started separating, and thick black oil leaked from the seams. A bad sign. It meant this steering unit had been running contaminated for a very long time. Now the real condition could finally be exposed. Inside, even the internal assemblies were seized solid. Bearings, retainers, shafts. Every component had to be shocked loose by force. But mixed inside all this destruction were precision parts. Tiny shims, washers, bearing spacers. Lose even one of these, and the steering geometry could be completely ruined. If you've ever rebuilt something like this before, you already know how stressful this stage is. Piece by piece, the gearbox started surrendering. And then came the component everything depended on, the worm gear assembly, the heart of the entire steering system. The bearing races were locked tightly inside the housing. No press, no puller, just controlled hammer strikes, experience, and patience. Too much force here, and the cast housing could crack. Years of hardened grease had turned the inside of this gearbox into sludge. Metal flakes were hiding inside the oil. Dirt packed every corner. The deeper they opened it, the worse it looked.
It finally took two mechanics working together to pull the main worm shaft free. And the moment it came out, the real damage became visible. Hundreds of tiny steel ball bearings, all coated in black, contaminated grease. These bearings are what allow heavy trucks to steer smoothly under massive load. And every single one mattered. One by one, the bearings had to be removed manually. One missing ball, one damaged groove, one mistake during assembly, and the entire steering box could fail again. How many of you would even attempt a rebuild like this? So the cleaning process began. Not with expensive chemicals, not with industrial machines, just recycled oil, steel pans, brushes, and hours of manual labor. Every surface had to be scrubbed by hand, because hidden underneath this grease could be cracks,
scoring, or catastrophic wear damage. The worm shaft was cleaned separately. Its helical grooves had to be perfectly clear before reassembly could even begin. Any contamination left inside would destroy the rebuild later.
And then came one of the oldest workshop cleaning techniques still used today: boiling the metal components over an open fire. The heat loosened hardened grease buried deep inside the parts. Steam forced contamination out from places brushes couldn't reach. Slowly, decades of grime started disappearing. And underneath all the dirt, the original metal surfaces finally started showing themselves again. But the most delicate cleaning job was still ahead. The recirculating grooves, the exact path where every steel ball travels under pressure during steering. If even a tiny grain of grit stayed trapped inside here, the rebuilt gearbox could destroy itself within minutes. This is the kind of detail most viewers never notice, but mechanics do. Now, the transformation finally became visible. Black sludge turned back into polished steel. Dead components slowly started looking alive again. Some contamination refused to come off easily, so the mechanics switched to steel wool and aggressive hand cleaning. No shortcuts. No replacement parts waiting on a shelf. Only restoration. The housing was cleaned again and again.
Because one hidden metal fragment inside a steering gearbox can destroy everything after reassembly. Every bearing was washed separately, every surface inspected by eye. Because this gearbox won't control a small car, it will eventually steer a fully loaded heavy truck. After hours of teardown, cleaning, inspection, and sorting, the entire steering box finally stood ready for rebuilding. And this is usually the moment where inexperienced mechanics make their biggest mistakes. Now came the precision work. Fresh seals, fresh grease, new retainers. Everything had to go back exactly where it belonged, and every tolerance mattered. Without hydraulic presses, the bearing races had to be seated manually. Too hard, and the race could crack. Too soft, and it would never lock properly. This is where experience matters more than expensive tools. The rebuild moved slowly. Controlled hammer strikes. Constant checking. Constant adjustment. Experienced mechanics can actually hear when a bearing seats correctly. The ring seats with a clean metallic paint. That sound? That's the sound of a perfect fit.
The needle bearings went in next. Tiny, precise, unforgiving. One damaged roller here, and the steering would never feel smooth again. Deep inside the housing, new seals and bearings replaced the worn originals. Slowly, the dead steering box started coming back to life. Fresh grease covered every moving surface. Because once this gearbox goes back onto a truck, it will handle enormous steering loads every single day. The preload system had to be assembled perfectly. Too tight, and the steering binds. Too loose, and the truck starts wandering dangerously at highway speed. But one more problem remained. The hydraulic steering section showed signs of internal wear, and failure here could completely destroy steering assistance. The mechanics checked every wear mark by hand, looking for damage severe enough to kill hydraulic pressure inside the system. This inspection decides whether a component survives or gets replaced.
This stage demanded teamwork. One mechanic aligned the internal valves, while the other guided the assembly into position. A rhythm built from years of working side by side. One wrong move here, and hydraulic pressure could destroy every seal inside the system. New seals slid into place. The hydraulic piston followed. Slowly, the destroyed steering unit started becoming complete again. The biggest cast housings went back together next. Heavy iron sections tightened carefully to survive pressure, vibration, and massive road forces. The sector shaft had to mesh perfectly with the worm gear. One wrong tooth position here, and the steering geometry would be completely off. This is precision work, disguised as brute force. Now, the final internal mechanism started going back into place. Springs, retainers, preload components. Tiny parts carrying enormous responsibility. One final retaining nut still needed massive torque. So the mechanics used body weight, leverage, and impact force to lock the assembly together. Steel against steel. Old school truck repair at its finest.
The final covers went on. The external components lined up. After hours of teardown, cleaning, measuring, fitting, and rebuilding, the steering gearbox was finally complete. But there was still one final test left. Would it actually feel smooth again? Or had something been missed deep inside the assembly? The shaft turned, smooth, tight, controlled. No grinding, no binding, no play. A steering box that once felt destroyed now felt factory smooth again. No expensive machines, no computerized equipment, just experience, patience, and mechanics who refuse to let heavy machinery die. Would you trust a rebuilt steering box repaired entirely by hand like this? Tell us in the comments. And if you enjoy real heavy machinery restorations from Pakistan's toughest workshops, subscribe for more impossible rebuilds brought back to life.